Hey, I'm Dedric Polite, and this is my wife.
Krystal Polite.
And we're the stars of 50/50 Flip on Hulu and A&E, and we're excited to share how you build generational wealth through real estate.
Welcome to the Rental Property Owner and Real Estate Investor Podcast, brought to you by the Rental Property Owners Association, where real estate investors have found success since 1968. I'm your host, Brian Hamrick from Hamrick Investment Group. This episode is sponsored by Green Property Management, managing everything from single-family homes to apartment complexes in the West Michigan area. Find out more at greenpropertymgt.com. And RCB and Associates, helping real estate investors and small business owners navigate the complex world of health insurance and Medicare benefits at rcbassociatesllc.com. Hello and welcome to episode 495. Not everyone goes from just over broke to financial independence in a few short years, but today's guest did exactly that. Dedric and Krystal Polite are real estate investors, entrepreneurs, and the stars of the hit A&E and Hulu show 50/50 Flip. They started by wholesaling houses, earning $50,000 a month, and used those profits to build a multi-million-dollar rental portfolio. Today, the Polites are here to share how they built their business from scratch, created generational wealth, and what it really takes to succeed as a couple in both real estate and life. Dedric and Krystal, welcome to the show.
Brian, thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us, Brian.
Tell us a little bit about yourselves. I mean, you kind of went from the rags to riches story. So I'd love to hear about your background and how you both got started investing in real estate.
We're a husband and wife team. We're married, and we also run multiple businesses together. We have 2 kids. We came from humble beginnings. We didn't come from money. I was raised by a single mom. I was raised in Section 8 housing in Boston, Massachusetts. I was able to get a full academic scholarship to go to high school as well as college. But again, in college, they don't teach you how to be an entrepreneur. They teach you how to go out and get a good job. Nothing wrong with that, but I always wanted financial freedom. And when Krystal and I got together, we were in our late 20s. She was already on the entrepreneurial path. She had 3 jobs when I met her. I was making 6 figures a year, but she always had a business or a side hustle. And our first date was actually kind of like a business meeting. So she was interviewing me. Little did I know, I thought it was to be her life partner, but she was interviewing me to be her business partner as well. But that's actually what I was looking for. I wanted to get married and build something with my wife versus working 100-hour weeks, barely seeing my spouse because I'm working all the time. I want to build something together. So it's been, 10, 15 years, and we've been building ever since.
Krystal, so you have an entrepreneurial background. Interesting that your first date was both an interview for, is this relationship going to continue? But also, is this someone I can do business with too? I mean, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you were doing before real estate, and then what made you think, hey, real estate is the way to go?
Before real estate, I was, like Dedric said, I literally had probably about 3 jobs. So I worked for an appraisal management company, I think the second largest in the U.S. I also worked at TD Garden, right, which is where the Celtics and the Bruins play. And then I also worked at a family shelter. So when he met me, I was hustling at that time, and no children or anything of that nature. But I also had a nonprofit. I always had my own business because I knew eventually within the next year or 2, I wanted to go full time into entrepreneurship. That has been my goal and dream since I was 4 years old, right? Was to own my own business. So that's always been the goal for me. And when I met Dedric, his dream was real estate. He's the one who really got us into it because when I met him, he had all the books, he had all the VHS tapes, he has CDs of all of these gurus who were doing real estate. And he read all these books and everything, but he was that entrepreneur. He had analysis paralysis. So he would read all of this, but never took any action. So I got tired of hearing him talk about it. And I'm the type of person who, if you get me to talk about it, read about it, we doing it at this point, right? I'm not going to waste my time or energy on something I don't window shop. So it's either we're going to do it or we're not going to do it, and we're going to stop having conversations about it. So he wanted to get into it. I said, all right, let's do it. I started doing my own research on real estate. I set up our business, and I really got us out there starting going to a lot of conferences and stuff of that nature. But it was his dream. And since it was something he wanted to do, I wanted to support him in it.
It's interesting how driven you are, Krystal, and just how you really kind of got Dedric to get past that analysis paralysis. And I'm wondering, like, what's the dynamics of your relationship that you're able to be successful in real estate? Like, how do you split up who does what and hold each other accountable?
We're both visionaries. We both have some integrator qualities to us, but in our real estate business, we have rental properties. We also do fixing and flipping, hence the TV show. And we also do wholesales. So how we split it up is, you have marketing, you have sales, you have admin, you have operations. She handles the marketing, the lead generation, and the admin. I handle the sales and more of the operations. So that's kind of how we split it up. And we also have a team as well of wonderful folks who help us execute on our vision.
Yeah, so we kind of oversee it now, but getting started, we joined a mastermind who really showed us how to divvy up the roles. And they gave us what was called an accountability chart. So it wasn't like we got into it and Dedric said, hey, since I've been wanting to do this for the longest, here, you do this, this, and this, and then I'm going to do this, this, and this. Because chances are you wouldn't be talking to us, right? So we went through this accountability chart and we picked out and played to our strengths at the time. And it was how we started out is not how we ended. When we started out, we both were working full-time jobs. Dedric was handling the acquisitions, dispositions, and marketing. When I went into the business full-time, I knew I wanted to take the biggest thing off his plate, which is marketing. And if you're not marketing in real estate or any business, you don't have a business. So I took that off his plate and then I took over marketing. So that's how I actually ended up. But I always tell people, play to your strengths. Let's not, don't assign roles because this isn't school. Play to your strengths in any business, right? Because you can literally integrate whatever you're doing in your full-time job into a real estate business.
And actually, Brian, we actually have a free accountability chart that we can give to your listeners. So we'll send you the link to put into the show notes. So anyone who's in real estate who wants an accountability chart, they'll be able to download that for free on our website.
Going back to mentorship and coaching, how important was that to your business in the beginning? And if you don't mind, who were you doing it with?
Mentorship was critical, Brian, because like you said, when we go to school, what do your parents do? They teach you to go to school, get a good job with benefits, right? Work for 40 years, get the golden watch. But that world doesn't exist anymore in 2025. And I knew I didn't want to be in corporate America for 30, 40 years. So Krystal was the one who was smart enough to be like, you know what? We're struggling. We're trying to figure this out from going on YouTube and watching podcasts. There's only so far it's going to get you. At some point, you need to be able to pick up the phone, call someone, and talk to someone who's been where you want to go, right? And who's made the mistakes so you can learn from that person and shorten your learning curve. So we hired a mentor. She was out of Charlotte. She did fix and flip. We paid $5,000. We spent a weekend with her. After the completion of the course, though, we were like, oh, no, we don't have money to fix and flip.
Yeah.
We don't have a couple $100,000 in cash. So she was like, oh, yeah, you guys probably should have told me that before we started this. She was like, all right, well, you need to build up your cash. You need to build up your capital. So go to this mastermind, and it's a marketing boot camp. So we went to that marketing boot camp in St. Louis. We learned all the different ways to find and source off-market real estate deals. And then they offered a mastermind at the end. That mastermind was $16,000 to join. It was all full-time real estate investors. Everyone's making over 7 figures a year. And the only way they let us join is because we paid $16,000.
Right.
We did not deserve to be in that room. And we didn't even have the money, Brian. We were both working jobs. I was making 6-figure salary, combined almost $200,000 a year, but we were still living paycheck to paycheck. And we had to put that mastermind, that $16,000 on a credit card. So we put it on a credit card, and that was kind of that burn the ships moment where I was like, hey, we just invested $16,000. Like, we got to make this work because I'm not going to ruin my credit, trying to be a real estate, billionaire.
And I would say we deserve to be in the room. We just wasn't qualified to be in the room, right? These are people who were all full-time real estate investors, and they were already making multi-millions. Me and Dedric was still in the thousandaires, right? Trying to get to the millionaire status. And what I learned was all we needed was access to these people. That's why I told him we have to get into a mastermind. All we needed was access. Once we got access, they understood if we paid to be in the room, we deserved to be here. And they were more than willing to open up and help us with any and every area of our business. But the biggest thing it did was humble us. A mastermind will definitely humble you, right? When you have to be accountable to just more than just you, yourself, but to other people, it really makes you, it's like a gut check, right? Every quarter we had to fly out to St. Louis, uproot not just us, but we had 2 small children. We would fly out Dedric's mom, so she would watch the kids while we were in the mastermind. So we have all this that we're taking with us just to come and say we hadn't done anything in our real estate business.
Not for lack of trying. We were trying to figure it out, but it took us over a year to close our first deal.
Right.
So anyone out there who's struggling, trying to close their first deal, whether it's a fix and flip or their first apartment or rental property, what have you, we've been there. It took us over a year to close our first deal. But once we got in this mastermind, like Krystal said, and we had an accountability group, and we had high level people we could tap into their knowledge and experience, that made a big difference for us.
The name of this was, what was it? It was in St. Louis, the Fast Track in St. Louis. God, it was so long ago.
Talk about that first deal. And I'm curious, like how the marketing, because you put an emphasis on marketing, Krystal, like how the marketing fell into place to get that first deal and what you mean by marketing. Was it reaching out to sellers, finding investors? And then also, where did the money come from to do that first deal?
The marketing was all of the above, right? How are we going to actually find the sellers of these properties? How are we going to find them to actually be able to take them down to wholesale them for us to be able to make cash? So for me, it was about learning my backyard, learning our market, learning who lives in that market, our demographics, so I'm able to effectively market to them, right? Knowing, saying, hey, we have a higher, older population of 70 plus. Well, we know 70 plus do not do text messaging. So I can't market to them through text messaging because they will never respond. Then you had ringless voicemail out there where you're dropping voicemails in people's inboxes. So we were really using what's called a conveyor belt marketing method. So we would cold call, we would do ringless voicemail, we would text message, and then the most expensive form of marketing, which is postcards. If we can't reach them through cold calling them or texting them, we would send out a postcard to them saying, hey, drove by your house and it looked just like this. And we say, hey, we drove by your house. We'd love to buy it. Are you a tired landlord? And then try and get them to call us. So it was really me trying to figure out, okay, how am I going to get the phone to ring for Dedric to then handle acquisitions, get on the phone with them to try to close them.
And then the first deal you actually found on Facebook Marketplace.
Yep.
So that was a free lead source.
Exactly. Facebook Marketplace, older couple. Dedric talked to them for maybe 6-7 months before they actually agreed.
Yep. The parents passed away. The daughter inherited the house. They didn't want it. They just want to liquidate and needed work. So that was our first deal. We made $11,000 wholesaling it. We had $100 earnest money deposit, tied it up, and just assigned it to the guy who did our taxes. Him and his wife were rental property investors. They own like 8 or 9 rentals. And they said, hey, if you guys ever find an off-market deal, we're looking to buy more rental properties. Let us know. We told them about it. We made $11,000 our first deal. Second deal, we made $5,000 from, again, sending these postcards to an inherited property list. And our third deal, we made $105,000. That was a virtual wholesale deal we did in Boston while living in North Carolina. And that was a game changer for us, Brian. Once we made $105,000 in one deal, we were like, wow, we are now cash buyers. Yep. We can actually buy some of these properties ourselves. And we went from like no rental properties to, I think it was like 18 rental properties within like 3 months once we closed that big deal.
It's interesting that you both stuck with it like you did, because it sounds like you had a year of just sort of getting your marketing in place, going through the coaching, the mentoring, spending a lot of money before you actually saw any results. And, there's a lot of people who would have given up within that time and just gone back to the corporate world and found a job. What kept you going? What made you say, you know what, we see that this is going to work. Let's just keep at it until it clicks into place.
It was really our why, Brian. Your why has to pretty much make you cry, right? And our why was we grew up, broke, grew up poor in Section 8, right? She was raised by a single mom. I was raised by a single mom. And we wanted to break that cycle of generational poverty. And we were like, we had to do something different, in order to break the cycle. We had to step out of the box. And like you said, we invested tens of thousands of dollars in our education and mentorship and coaching before we closed one deal. So we had too much invested to turn around, right? And we had already tried different things, right? I tried selling prepaid legal after she tried selling network marketing, different products, stuff like that. We tried and failed at a dozen businesses before we got to real estate. So that experience as well, everything finally clicked once we got in this business and we were off to the races.
And I always like to tell people, you either quit or you keep going. They're both going to hurt. So as long as you keep that in mind and you understand whether you
There's
quit
no easy button
or you keep going, they're both going to hurt. There's no easy way around it. It really eliminates the quitting for you. You quit, it's going to hurt. If you keep going, it's going to hurt, because anything worth having is worth working and grinding and getting in the dirt for. So for us, quitting was really never an option once you see what's in front of you.
I'd like to take a moment to tell you about Green Property Management. Not only do they manage everything from single-family homes to apartment complexes in the West Michigan area, they also manage my entire portfolio. So I can tell you from personal experience that their unique flat fee management style is worth a closer look. If you feel that your property isn't operating to its fullest potential, then Green Property Management can help you take a holistic approach that will save you money, eliminate your headaches, and increase your net income. And if you're a property manager interested in applying Green Property Management's model, give them a call at 1-866-95-GREEN or visit them on the web at greenpropertymgt.com. If you're thinking of leaving your W-2 job and becoming a full-time real estate investor, one of the greatest costs you must consider is healthcare for you and your family. When I made this transition myself, I found the whole healthcare insurance process to be confusing and frustrating. That's why I'm glad I met Chad Krystal at RCB and Associates. Chad is a professional health insurance agent who helps real estate investors and small business owners understand and choose their best healthcare options. And best of all, his services are covered by the insurance company and won't cost you a dime. If you live in Michigan and are expecting a change in your healthcare insurance coverage for any reason, or losing employer coverage or transitioning into Medicare, then you owe it to yourself to contact Chad Krystal at rcbassociatesllc.com. Talk about the momentum phase, because you kind of spent a year or so really trying to get into it, spending a lot of money, not seeing any real results until you started seeing results. And at that point, I'd imagine you started building up more momentum. And at what point and how long did it take till you got to the place where you could say, okay, this is really working. We can focus on this full time now? Once
we closed that first deal, we made $105,000. We quickly acquired, 3 or 4 apartment buildings and started building our rental portfolio, which is the main reason we got into real estate. We got in the business to build a portfolio, not just to wholesale and flip houses. We realized that wholesaling, you can make a ton of cash, flipping, you can make a ton of cash. But at the end of the day, those are both jobs. Now, they're very well paying jobs, right? I don't know many jobs where you can make 20,000 bucks an hour, but they're both jobs. So again, once we closed that first wholesale deal, we had something called belief, and we had confidence, like, wow, this actually works.
Yep.
Let's do it again. Let's do it again. And let's continue to do it. And we'll never stop wholesaling properties, every single month, making $50,000 to $100,000 wholesaling. That can allow you to invest in a lot of cash flowing assets. So that's pretty much what we've been doing ever since, is wholesaling. We'll cherry pick the best deals to keep in our portfolio as rental properties. And then the properties that we don't want to hold long term, we assign and wholesale off to other investors.
What does your portfolio look like? Have you kept a lot of the properties as buy and hold rentals?
Yeah. So we have a bunch of single family homes we own here in North Carolina. We have duplexes, triplexes, quads. We also own a 37 lot mobile home park that's on 10 acres of land. We own commercial buildings as well. We just closed on another commercial property last week. So we have a varied and diverse portfolio. We also own vacant land that we're going to be developing, new construction. We're actually about to start a build to rent community on about an acre of land that we own. We're going to build probably 4 to 6 townhouses, and then we're going to rent those as long-term holds.
But we always tell people buy land. Why? Because they're not making any more of it. So whenever we come across it, we like to take it down.
So you've got a lot going on. What does your company look like? I mean, is it still the two of you doing everything, or have you hired a staff, a team that handles a lot of this for you?
No way we could do all this ourselves.
Yeah. So as we grow, the company typically grows, right? So when it was us, we have a team that handles our real estate side. We have a team that really handles the television side. We have a team that handles the other commercial businesses as well. So we do still keep it lean as far as who's working with us. A lot of it is also outsourced. So our CFO is not in-house, they're outsourced. Our COOs, all of them are not local, but they're working for our company. So we still like to keep it lean, but not so that everything is on our backs anymore.
Yeah, even our property management. We have 3 property managers managing our portfolio. So we have 1 property manager for our long-term rentals. We have another for our Airbnbs and
short-term rentals.
And then we have 1 for our mobile home park. So again, we have a team that handles a lot of the behind the scenes for us.
And is your team internal, or do you hire third-party managers and third-party?
Majority of them third party. Yeah, we don't believe in having hey, I got 50 people working for me just to say the salaries and the expenses. We outsource in 1099 a lot of our team members.
So let's talk about the TV show and that pivot that you made at some point to having your own TV show, which is an excellent show. But how did that come about? Did you go seeking that, or did they come find you?
They came and found us through social media. So they had been following our Instagram account for over a year, and we had been reached out to from quite a few networks. And at the time, I wasn't interested. So we would,
Krystal's very private.
Yes.
Like, TV, no.
So I was definitely not interested. We declined. And then this one, A&E had been contacting us in our DMs for over a year, but we got so many people in our DMs at that point, we were no longer really in them. And so they called our 800 number and got our assistant, our secretary, who promised them to give us the call. We got on a call with them. And they kind of just told us like, hey, we are A&E. We're not a third party, a third party company. And we was like, okay. And they was like, we'd love to talk to you guys about doing a TV show. And we were just like, oh, they was like, we're really looking for 3. We're looking to start 3 this coming season. And we're interviewing hundreds of people. So we was just like, oh, well, we're not really going to do it. Let's just see how far we'll get. That's really what we were thinking. So in our back of our mind, we never intended on doing a TV show.
We didn't think they were going to pick us. We're like, let's just go through the process, see how far we can get.
So we can tell people at least like, we got to the last round, and then all of a sudden, after meeting after meeting, they came back to us and said, hey, we love to offer you guys one of the slots for the TV for your own TV show. And we was kind of like,
we looked at each other like, wow, we didn't think we were going to get picked. Like now I think we kind of have to do this.
Right. No, Dedric was just like, at that time, he's like, babe, I don't want to do a TV show. Now it completely switched because in the beginning, Dedric wanted to do it. I didn't want to do it. Then when they said it, I was like, Dedric was like, yeah, I don't want to do it. And I was like, bro, we got to do it. Like they done went through all of these candidates. And now we're like one of the last ones standing. Like we can't just, we can't go back on our word like this. So he was like, that's not our problem. So we ended up doing it. First season was crazy because you get into it, you don't know what you don't know.
It's a full-time job. So filming a TV show is about 50 to 60 hours a week on top of all the other stuff we have going on that we just explained to you.
Yeah.
So it was intense. We did 6 renovations, 6 properties. And a lot of times you're doing 4 or 5 projects simultaneously. And many people don't know that, but we had not flipped a house before we flipped one on national TV. Now, we had done renovations and we had tracked them on our social media, but all the properties we were buying and renovating, those were our buy and hold rental properties. So we were renovating them up to flip quality because we believe people deserve a nice place to live, but we weren't selling them. So it's difference between renovating a rental versus renovating a flip. You got to go above and beyond with the flip. So our first flip was on season 1 of national TV. We did 6 episodes. Season 2, it was 10 episodes, a lot smoother because we knew what to expect. We knew the time demands. We actually hired more people to have a larger team to help, lighten the load a little bit on us.
What's the upside of having that TV show out there? I mean, does it help your credibility? Does it help really grow your business? And then also, on the flip side, what are the downsides of doing the TV show?
Upsides is all of the above. So it helps with your credibility. It definitely also helps within your community for which you're doing it in, right? So what you see on our TV show is exactly who we are. When we were rehabbing all of these properties, they were within our community and being able to provide that affordable housing. But it also helps us because it stretched us, right? Mm-hmm. It allowed us to really show us what we could do in the real estate space in that area, right? Like Dedric said, we had never flipped really. Everything was just renovating our own properties. And in doing so, we've become an inspiration to other couples and other individuals who's looking to do the same things either in their family, in their neighborhoods, or just under the same premise of Dedric and I, which is just really building generational wealth. and building something that outlives us to be able to pass on to that next generation. So to have people from all over the country reaching out to us like, hey, I love what you guys are doing. I love what you're doing for your community. I want to do the same thing in my area. How do I do this? So that's really an amazing upside. I think the downside would be, what would be a downside?
I mean, just the amount of work it takes. It takes a big team and it takes a lot of work.
Yeah, I would definitely say.
I mean, how we looked at it is like, this is a once in a lifetime opportunity to be on national TV, to share our story, to inspire people. So it was like, it's something we couldn't pass up.
Yeah, I'd definitely say it would be just the amount of work. You're working 10 hours a day, 5 days a week straight. And our filming season's typically about 10 months out of the year.
So are you doing it again? Is there going to be another season?
We'll see. We are contracted to do 4. We just finished up the second season, which is what most people are seeing air now on Hulu, because Hulu bought the rights to our second season.
And for those who haven't watched it, the show's called 50/50 Flip. And the whole idea of the show is that we flip houses in 50 days or less, spending $50K or less in renovation costs. Now, that name was, the producers came up with a TV show. This is in 2021, where, costs were a little bit lower, right? By season 2, costs had shot up, inflation, and we were doing bigger rehab projects. So our average rehab for season 2 was well over $100,000. But that's where the name 50/50 Flip came from.
Yeah, does that put constraints on you to try to stay within that 50/50, especially when costs have gone up and the values of what you're rehabbing have gone up?
No, because I think for us, even for season 2, it was really us who decided to take on bigger projects. So a majority of our houses, I would say at least half of them, we were able to stick to the 50/50 because we do starter homes. So we don't do, 3,000 square feet homes, $1 million properties. We stay within the starter home price point so we can provide affordable housing to someone who may work at a food restaurant who's now trying to get into their starter home. Well, we give them a forever home in that starter home price point. So that's why we like to stick to that. So it's not as hard because we're looking for those, 2 ones that we can maybe add a bed and bath, or 3 ones where we can make a 3-2. For us, we want to challenge ourselves a little bit more and do a couple that, each season we've done a 4 unit. So that wasn't a challenge.
And for the record, Brian, we're buy and hold investors, so we don't sell any of our apartment buildings. So we explained that to the TV people. We was like, hey, just so you know, we're not house flippers, right? And there's a million house flipping shows. We don't want to be 1,000,001. They were like, no, we just want to document whatever you do, whether you renovate it and keep it or sell it. We just want to document and follow your journey. So the 4-unit apartment buildings that we renovated on season 1 and season 2, we did a quadplex on each one. We kept both those properties in our portfolio, and those are long-term holds for us.
Tell our listeners how they could find out more about you, get a hold of you, and anything you'd like to promote. Please feel free to share.
So one of our mottos, Brian, we have a few. One is don't sell Big Mama's house. And that's the concept of, a lot of people have these generational homes. They're a lot of times close to the center city. So we always tell people, don't necessarily just sell that, right? There's a way to capture some of that value. And we teach people how to hold on to those generational properties and build equity for their families. But also, we created something called Polite Wealth Portal, right? Because this business allowed us to become financially independent and really own our time. We're passionate about sharing this knowledge that we have with other people. And even when people watch our show, they're like, I learned something and I was entertained, but I learned. So now I'm interested in how can I do the same thing? Krystal always says, it's not about how many doors we own, but it's about how many doors we can open for someone else to walk through. So that's why we created our education company. We do free trainings once a month where we'll do a free 90-minute training, just educating people on wholesaling, how to find leads, how to get into their first deal with very little to no money without having a real estate license. And then we also have online courses and even a mentorship program and a mastermind for folks who really want to go deep and full time into it.
And you can find us on all social media platforms under anything Be Polite. So Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, TikTok, you name it, is under Be Polite.
So BE Polite, our last name. So Be Polite Properties.
I'm going to ask each of you this question, but what is your favorite hack or app?
My favorite hack or app is two. ChatGPT and also Claude. Those are both AI apps. And literally, like, several times a day, I'm having it do something that would have taken me 2 or 3 hours to write or think of, put together, and it's doing it in like 30 seconds. So ChatGPT and Claude is another AI app that's similar to ChatGPT.
For me, my favorite hack would be, or more so life hacks for me. So my hacks are, I outsource a lot of what goes on in our house. So my laundry is outsourced, meal prep, cleaning, anything that can really that doesn't take time now away from me, I kind of outsource and it's done for us. And my favorite app would be Pinterest, actually. So I am like diehard Pinterest person for me. I know that's weird. It has nothing to do with real estate, but I do get a lot of inspiration from real estate on Pinterest. So I probably have I'm probably a power user with probably like 600 boards on Pinterest.
Krystal and Dedric, thanks so much for being on the show today. It's been a real pleasure talking about just how you started out, spending like a year just trying to get your first deal done. And the momentum you were able to create and achieve, and then with the TV show, what you were able to accomplish there. It's been a real pleasure talking with you, and thanks so much for being here today.
Appreciate you, Brian. Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for inviting us, Brian.
I want to thank everybody for listening to this episode. I'm your host, Brian Hamrick from Hamrick Investment Group, and you can find out more about me by going to higinvestor.com. That's higinvestor.com. And you can also ask questions and join us on Facebook by going to RPOA, Rental Property Owner and Real Estate Investor Podcast. This episode was sponsored by Green Property Management, managing everything from single-family homes to apartment complexes in the West Michigan area. Find out more at greenpropertymgt.com. And RCB and Associates, helping real estate investors and small business owners navigate the complex world of health insurance and Medicare benefits at rcbassociatesllc.com.
You've been listening to the Rental Property Owner and Real Estate Investor Podcast, brought to you by the Rental Property Owner Association. You can find out more at rpoaonline.org. If you enjoyed this podcast, please go to iTunes to subscribe, rate, and review.